Yo, what's up, guys? Your boy Kenny back with some more small talk. Back on the podcasting. It's been a minute since I did my last one. To be fair, the past couple of weeks I've been focusing on my YouTube channel. Small talk. You can catch me on there. Small talk, two separate words. Um, so I thought today, let me just get back to the podcast, seeing as I've got quite a lot to talk about. I think anyway. So yeah, let's get into it. So, in the midst of like all this, you know, pandemic madness, COVID-19, one thing that I'm kind of noticing is just the lack of purpose that is evident in the world today amongst individuals. I feel like there's a lack of purpose, and it's manifesting quite clearly within this period. I feel like a few people are using this period in order to actualize their purpose. A few people are using this period positively. They're using it wisely to get closer to their purpose, to cultivate a purpose, to just think more clearly about things that they want in life, etc. But then a lot of people are just drifting. A lot of people are just going with the flow, not doing nothing, perpetually bored. And I think to myself, like, I mean, yeah, I get it. At times you're going to be bored. At times I've been bored at home. But the more bored you are, to me, it just highlights how little purpose you have. You know what I mean? You're just not busy enough, in my opinion, if you're just constantly bored. You've got to activate your mind in more ways than you currently are. But this lack of purpose thing is kind of crazy, because it just makes me think about, where this comes from, where that pandemic, within this pandemic of COVID-19, where the pandemic of not having a purpose generally comes from. And it's something that I've realized in the past few years, especially as I've been in sort of self-development, you know, just self-learning, self-help, just coming across the amount of people that I have in my experience who just tend to drift through life, and it's just making me think where that comes from. And I think that there are a number of things that play a part in this kind of pandemic. But when I just look at the major structures of the world, there just seems to be a lack of purpose that's perpetuated to people. And what I mean by that is for example, let's take school, right? Let's take the education system, right? The very framework, or the very approach to learning, can be viewed as quite wrong, because people, when we go to school, we're taught basically to regurgitate information. We're taught to basically remember as much as we can. And the individuals that succeed in the education system are the ones that have the ability to remember the most information, regurgitate that information for an exam, and then they'll be rewarded. They'll do well in the exam. And that's essentially, traditional education's, that's how it tackles learning. That's how it basically, that's its approach to learning. But it doesn't actually prepare individuals to think for themselves. It doesn't prepare individuals to critically think, to independently think for themselves. So what happens is that people go through life after education, and even people that have gone to the highest points of education, having degrees bestowed upon them, and I'm one of those people. I've got a degree, but people go through this system and still not know how to think for themselves. And that's why you have a difference between somebody who's smart and someone who's wise, right? Somebody who's smart has basically been able to use their ability to regurgitate information, to basically discipline themselves and do what they're told. I'm not saying that that's easy. There's a credit in that, and it's difficult, but the reality is that they've used their ability to regurgitate information to do well in an exam, right? And they've used that ability to navigate themselves through a career, a professional career, and those people are considered smart. However, wise people, and these people are very far and few between. I probably say, like, I'm just plucking at numbers, but 2 out of every 100 people are genuinely wise. And these people are people who have managed to, against the odds of the education system, managed to think for themselves independently and become wise. And because they've become wise and they've thought for themselves, they've been able to navigate through. First of all, they've been able to cultivate a purpose for themselves. Right? They've been able to cultivate a purpose for themselves, and because they've done that. They have been able to think critically in order to find a way of getting to that purpose. So they've been able to use their thoughts to become wise, to navigate through life in an appropriate way to get to their definite purpose. And the problem with the education system is that because it doesn't teach people to critically think, people don't cultivate a purpose for themselves. People are more inclined to drift in life. And you can see it everywhere, even after somebody's done a degree. I mean, the amount of people I know that have a degree but aren't in work that's related to that degree, right? And given that, I know that it's tough out here. You know what I mean? I was one of those graduates, and it can be tough out here, man. But that's the very problem, is that because most of us haven't been taught to think for ourselves and cultivate a purpose, we come out of uni not actually knowing exactly what it is we want for our life. The very subjects that we chose to go to uni for, down the line, a lot of us realize that they're not aligned with who we are, because we weren't told to really think about what it is that we want out of life through school. So anyway, we get our degree, and then most of us just end up getting a job that the first one that we can find that's good enough money so that we can actually, start fending for ourselves, start providing provision for ourselves. If people want to move out, they'll move out. But essentially, they want to get on the corporate ladder as soon as possible, as quickly as they can, because they don't want to not be at home, or be at home and not do nothing, and not be that person who's a bum and doesn't have a job. Essentially, that's what happens. And I think that is one of the crucial and key issues, is that lack of purpose that's been perpetuated through the school system that then drags through life. And if somebody is not inclined to self-help, if someone's not inclined to think for themselves, if someone hasn't been, come from a home that, what's the word? Where their parents, promote critical thinking and self-thinking and thinking for yourself and becoming wise, the person will just go through life, and they may do well professionally, but they still won't be able to think for themselves. And so they'll go through life having somebody else who has managed to think for themselves do the thinking for them and run their life. Right? And it's just crazy how it works, man, and how people just drift. People just drift. I mean, look at health, for example, is another thing that I'm quite passionate about, because it's another thing that I feel like the world view to health is also at the wrong angle as well, right? The world views health, and the major institutions of health and the pharmaceutical industry, their view to health is curing a disease, but it doesn't actually value root causes. It doesn't value, finding out why a certain person has become sick, or why a certain person is showing these symptoms, or why a certain person has got to the stage where they are in their health. They value the cure more than they do actual prevention. And when you just look at like the laws of life, when you just study nature, because I believe that when you if you want to find truth, and that's another byproduct of thinking for yourself, is that you'll ask quality questions, and when you ask quality questions, you'll get closer and closer to truth. If you ask quality questions and you try and find out truth, what you'll find out is that nature basically gives us the answers. If you want truth, just study nature. Right? Just study nature, because Mother Nature shows us what we need to know. But we neglect that. We neglect it, and we as human beings over time just try to come up with our own solutions and our own way of doing things, and in the end, in the long term, it's just to our demise. And you can see that in nature, and if you just study, natural law and natural order, that health is something, or disease is something that should be prevented, not cured. And, I'm not a health expert, but the more I look into health, the more I realize that the body naturally, and I believe in God. I believe that God has naturally made our bodies to heal itself. And with the aid of plants, of natural resources, and, a certain way of living that actually, coincides with natural law and natural order, we will live a healthy life. But as human beings, we violate natural law. We violate laws of health. And by so doing, we get ourselves sick. And because the world view on health is to cure disease instead of prevent disease, instead of to educate the person to actually become healthy so that they prevent disease, people don't have a purpose for their health. Right, what's one of the main factors, or probably the main factor in actually, affecting someone's health? Is the food they eat. But most people, especially in my experience, don't approach food with a purpose. If you think about it, food is fuel. Fuel is something that you should eat food with a purpose, to fuel the body, to give the body the correct nutrients and minerals that it needs to be healthy. But people value pleasure when it comes to food over purpose. And so they get sick. And that's just another example of this lack of purpose that I feel like is in the world today. And I feel like it's perpetuated by the main institutions, the main influences, the main, pillars in the world. And it's a big problem. It's a huge problem. You've got people in jobs that they don't really want to be in. There's no real purpose there apart from just to pay bills. They get home. There's no real purpose at home apart from just sit in front of the television. Right? People eat without a purpose. People raise their children without a real purpose. People, people take in content without a real purpose. People value entertainment over learning. But in order to learn something, you need a purpose. You need to think for yourself in order to go and pick up a book to learn something. And it's a huge issue. And, it becomes a huge issue because people end up not actually living the lives that they truly want to live. They end up not being fulfilled out of life. And you can see it on a day-to-day basis. People just drift through life. They're just on autopilot. All because there's no purpose in their life. There's no direction. And on a deeper level, it's because they're not thinking. They're not thinking because they haven't been encouraged to think by the system in any way, shape or form. Another area you see is in relationships. This is a huge area. Like, the divorce rate right now It's probably the highest it's ever been. I've got no statistics to back that up, but I can make a pretty good calculated guess, especially from what I see around in society. And it just coincides with this lack of purpose that's going on in the world, right? You think about it, people get into a relationship with no purpose, apart from the fact that they probably find the person attractive, right? And I've been there. I've been there. I've been there, and you know, it's not only until you actually do think and self-reflect and learn from your mistakes that you can begin to actually change the narrative and stop this whole drifting thing and start thinking with a clarity of mind to have a purpose. And that involves your relationships. So people just get into relationships with no real purpose, like I said, right? And then time passes. So most people get like physically, involved with each other, sexually involved with each other, before any real purpose has been like established with their intent for the relationship and where they want to be in terms of their relationship and what they want to do with their lives. So they get into a situationship, they get sexually involved, and because there's no purpose, people start falling in love. People get because obviously sex will bond people in so many ways, and it basically it removes or inhibits the ability to critically think when you start engaging in that, especially when you're doing that with a person and you're continuously in that relationship, and your feelings get involved, get in a way. And now you're in a relationship that has no goal, no purpose. And then what happens is that people try to start forming that when it's too late, and they start realizing that the person that they're with is not for them. Or, people get married, but there's no real clarity of purpose before they get married as to what kind of marriage that they want, what kind of relationship they want, what kind of boundaries they're setting. How do they want to raise their kids? Do they want kids? What roles do they expect the other person to fulfill? What mission are they both on as a couple? If things go wrong, what are they going to turn to resolve their issues? What are their philosophies of money? Are they both in agreement on the philosophies of money? Do they both see money in the same way? All these things involve thinking. They all involve critically thinking to try and navigate through life so that they can get to a required goal. But if there's no purpose of the relationship in the beginning, how's it supposed to actually flourish? No wonder why the divorce rate is so high. Because 10, 15 years go down the line, and people find themselves unhappy in relationships that they didn't plan for. They didn't foresee. Because they didn't come together to establish a purpose. And it just plays its role in just every single avenue in life. And it's just crazy. It's so crazy, man. And, I just feel like the people who are able to unplug from this matrix, people that are able to fill in the gaps through self-help, through knowledge, through finding wisdom, through asking quality questions, they can stop the pattern. They can stop the pattern, man. They can stop the pattern. They can write a new narrative, and they can start forming purposes in their life, and they can stop drifting, and they can start winning in life. Because what I'm realizing is people that generally win in life, whether it be in their relationships, financially, winning their health, winning their career on their work and doing something that they actually want to do and it gives them fulfillment. They're doing that because they have had a definite purpose, a definite plan, a definite roadmap, and they're doing everything in their means and power to make that a reality. Yes, obstacles will come. Yes, life may not turn out the way that they want it to, but the fact that they have a purpose there, it means that their actions that they're taking and the decisions that they make are done intentionally. They're done actively and they're not done passively. So they're less likely to be thrown around by life. They're less likely to have their life dictated by somebody else. And they're more likely to have more power and control over their life. And if things don't pan out the way they are or the way that they plan to, they can make adjustments. They can reroute. But the fact that they have a definite purpose means that they have that control over their life that other people don't, that most people don't. And when you just have that purpose in your life, when you just have the idea of purpose, when you can think for yourself independently, you just start to live a different life. You start to just control your reality more. You're less inclined to be influenced by forces that are there to distract you, that are there to just make you drift through life. You're more intentional about what you listen to. You're more intentional about what you read. You're more intentional about the people that you let into your life, the relationships that you form. You're more intentional about what career you go through. You're more intentional about how you make your money, how you spend your money, how you save your money. You're more intentional about what you put in your system in terms of food and drink and everything else. You're more intentional about life. And when you're more intentional about life, you get better results. Period. You know, one thing I'm also realizing is that people that think, independently think, they ask questions, and they tend to be people that make less generalizations or generalization statements and less assumptions in life, and they ask more questions. They ask why more of the time. And I said this before earlier in the podcast, when you ask quality questions, you get quality answers. When you ask why, you get closer and closer to the truth. You get closer and closer to unlocking keys of wisdom that will help you in life and make better decisions. But people that don't have or don't think for themselves, they just make assumptions in life. They make general statements that they haven't backed up with any kind of research or any kind of investigation. And whenever someone does that, whenever you make a statement, it essentially blocks the avenue for learning to come through. It blocks the ability for you to learn more, for you to grow, because you shut the door for any possibility of new information coming in, because you've made a statement and that's it, it's final. But whenever you ask questions, you're always opening the door for more information to come in. And that's all part of thinking for yourself, independently thinking. And school doesn't promote that. The system doesn't promote that. And it's a big, big problem, guys. So I think, you know, we need to start thinking for ourselves. We need to start thinking for ourselves. And, you know, it takes vigilance. It takes a lot of conscious effort, because for a lot of us, it's going to be a brand new skill. A lot of us are in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s that have never been able to do this, that have never been encouraged to do this. So it's something that we've got to take real, real seriously. You know? So it falls on you. It falls on you. It falls on you to change the game, to change the narrative for your generations to come, for your future, so that, you know, you can teach your kids, so that you can promote thinking for themselves, critical thinking, independent thinking. You can promote that in your future, your kids, and in your life going forward. All right, guys. Kind of dragged on a bit this podcast, but hey, man, it is what it is. had a lot on my mind. I wanted to share. I wanted to just offload it. So if you liked it, hey, give it a share, give it a like, and yeah, you can get at me. I'll put my email in the description. If you're watching this on or listening to it on YouTube, and I'll also make it available on SoundCloud as well. So if you're listening there as well, you can contact me if you've got any questions, anything you want to talk about, any advice. I'm here free of charge. So yeah, I have got social media. I've got an Instagram, Small Talk, strictly Small Talk actually. So I'll put that in the description as well. Still revamping that page, to be fair. So yeah, that should look a bit different in the sort of upcoming future. But yeah, guys, thanks for listening. I really appreciate it if you lasted this long. Much love to you, and yeah, I'll be back soon. Take care, guys. Peace.